You know, there's always a little delay there, so I always want to show up the fist because this represents the old style of boxing. And we believe in this show, Blind Luck, the search for Harry Greb, the old guys, in many cases, will beat the young guys, the new guys. Floyd Mayweather, the greatest fighter of all time. We don't think so. And we're going to try to prove it here on the show and keep an open debate for any new fight fans that don't believe that. They actually believe Floyd is number one because of his stellar 50 and 0 career. We just disagree. We believe guys like Harry Greb, the guy that we're looking for, and his films, we believe he would dust those guys. Anybody today, Triple G, Canelo, Crawford, so this is the kind of conversation we're going to be having throughout this series. So we want you to like and subscribe and follow along as we look for Harry Greb's lost film and films. He was the middleweight champion of the world in the 1920s. So why is that relevant today? Well, it is the missing fight films. There's at least 6 fight films that have gone missing, and this show, in part, is to introduce you to this great champion, but also to try to find the fight films. They're worth tens of millions of dollars, and they may change the course of the history of our sport. And we have a very rich history, and you'll know that by the end of today's show because our guest today is an amazing writer based out of Toronto, Canada, and he has a brand new book called The Combination. Combination is an awesome book that details the mafia and their infiltration in the sport. I'm not going to get too much into it because I'm going to let the author talk more about it right now. He's also a ring historian and knows all about the current fight being. So without further ado, let's invite our buddy Michael J. Woods to the show. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Scott. Joy to be here.
You know, we've been pals for a long time. I'll give a little background for the people that don't know. We started working together at City TV back in the, I guess, late 80s, early 90s. And
Yep,
ever since,
yep.
we've been pals based on a lot of different things, love of news, love of news gathering, but of course, the history of the sport of boxing. You've loved it for a long time. Tell us about your love of the sport and why you're into it so much.
Well, I was in the when I was young and the world was new and dinosaurs still roamed the earth. Um, I was in the army. I spent 5 years in the Canadian Army, and we boxed. And I wasn't bad at it. So from that, and I had been a life even before I went into the army. I remember as a 12-year-old watching Muhammad Ali beat people up over in different countries around the world on ABC's Wide World of Sports. And from that, it grew. Ali was phenomenal, just the greatest. But then came Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, and you quickly realized that it was a pool of talent that was constantly refilled because we ain't eliminated poverty yet. And it's the poor who are the fighters. The history of boxing shows the waves of immigration into the U.S. by who were the dominant boxers. First the Irish, the Jewish, the Italian, and the various island locations, Cubans, and boxing is truly international because poverty is everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You see it today. I mean, one of the most classic examples of what you're saying is Manny Pacquiao, how he went from rags to riches based on his incredible performances in the ring. Yeah, it has been a history for what, 120 odd years of incredible stories like this. And yeah, it helps enrich the stories that guys like you and I, a lot of new fight fans love to hear, and that's why we're trying to engage them in not just the debate, but learning a little bit more about the history. And that's why your book is so important, the combination. I know you've been working on it for a couple years, several years, and you've known about the story for a long time, but fill the viewers in about the process of writing a book first, as well as what the contents are.
Well, you have to have a deep-seated passion for whatever subject you're writing about. You're going to need that to sustain you through the research and the reading and, shuffling through old newspapers and all of that you need for a starting point. And it helps that it was a subject that I love. Now, the combination itself was the name of the gangsters who controlled boxing pretty much from 1924 through to 1960. The head of the combination was a very bad man by the name of Frankie Carbo.
Mr.
Who's
Gray.
Mr. Gray, yes. He kept a low profile as he took over control of boxing, but he started off as a gunman for Murder Incorporated. He had been arrested and charged with murder on 5 separate occasions. In one of them, a colleague from Murder Incorporated was going to testify. But before the trial came up, he committed suicide by jumping out the window of the hotel he was staying in under police guard.
Wow.
Coroner notes that the body landed 25 feet away from the wall of the building, and which indicates he was given a certain assistance on the way out. But Frankie Carbo was given a percentage of the contract of, at the time the reigning welterweight champion. It was given to him by well-known mafioso Vito Genovese. And from that humble beginning, within a year, he owned all of the champ's contract, and he expanded it. And at the height of his powers, and I'm talking a 15-year span, he controlled the welterweight, middleweight, and heavyweight championships. He decided who got a shot at the title. He decided who would win. He decided how much of the purse the fighter would actually get. Now, a lot of that had to do with with gambling. If you fix the fight, you can bet accordingly. But Carbo controlled it all until 1960, at which time he got sent to prison finally, and the last fighter he controlled, Sonny Liston, shortly thereafter lost to Cassius Clay. And all of the mob knew they couldn't make a move on Clay because of the Black Muslim backing that he announced shortly after winning the title. They just knew that would be a race war as well as a criminal war.
Fascinating subject of the mob that always runs through a lot of people's veins. I mean, the series of the Godfather movies, Sopranos. It has such a you saw me react in a kind of a snicker a couple times about Frankie Carbo's illegal goings on, the murders that he was involved in. But it was so blatant when you see it afterwards. But like you said, he was behind
Looking
the
back,
scenes.
yeah.
It was hard to believe because they were smart. The mob was smart. They attached themselves with legitimate businessmen, and got themselves involved with the Madison Square Garden guys. So that really helped legitimize what they were doing. And the advent of what you and I know a lot about, TV. Television was the biggest catalyst, was it not? Or
Oh,
was
yes,
okay. Tell
there
us about
was.
that.
The what happened was that I'll find his name, but there was one man who was very legit, who controlled matchmaking for Madison Square Gardens. He had a stroke, and it weakened him.
Jacobs?
Hmm?
Is it Mike Jacobs?
Yeah, Mike Jacobs. Had a stroke and couldn't fight off anymore. And eventually, through the International Boxing Club, which remarkably enough featured virtually every fighter on earth,
Right.
they got the power to do the matchmaking at Madison Square Garden. Along with that is the advent of television. And especially with the early televisions, boxing was the perfect sport. It was well lit and in a very confined area, because remember that for the first few years of television, it was a 9-inch diagonal screen.
Right.
Well, you don't do golf broadcasts with a screen that size. It just doesn't work. But boxing
Yeah.
proved to be fabulous for television. But to do boxing, you need boxers. Frankie Carbo, with the exception of Joe Louis and Sugar Ray Robinson, Frankie Carbo controlled virtually every fighter on earth. And if the International Boxing Club didn't, they had the International Boxing Managers Club.
Nice.
Well, yeah, because you also now get to dip into the manager's money while you're able to put pressure on the managers, make sure your fighter, looks for the soft spot in the canvas in the fifth round, So,
Wait, double dipping is what you're saying?
oh yeah, no, the former editor of Ring Magazine, Bert Sugar, had a great remark about one of the boxing sanctioning bodies. He said that when asked, "Did these people take money under the table?" he answered, "They took money under the table, over the table, and on occasion they would take the table." And that was Frankie Carbo's whole thrust. His wife, when it reached the peak, when television knew that they had to deal with Frankie to get the fighters to fill the cards, because at one point boxing was on 6 nights a week.
Wow.
And it was live.
Yeah.
To make sure that Frankie would keep supplying them, they did things like his wife was paid $40,000 a week.
Nice.
You could buy a new car for under $1,000.
Yeah.
Things like that. It was a huge money machine for Carbo and I know it sounds like it, but I didn't make these names up. His biggest wingman, his biggest associate, was a Philadelphia gangster by the name of Blinky Palermo.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, Blinky and Carbo. Sure.
Well, I just did an interview mentioning your name and throwing out kudos to your new book, and the conversation kind of went, what else in the world can Frankie Carbo and Blinky Palermo possibly do other with those names? Other than being
true.
American gangsters. They're the classic names. They're almost like when you see them, it's like, wow, they look like a cast out of Sopranos in a lot of ways.
Oh, definitely. It looks like the Sopranos. In all the research, because I went back as far as I could, the first major gangster influencer is also my favorite. Now, it might be because I'm romantic in a way, or nostalgia. But the number one, and the guy who kind of started it, was a gangster, a bootlegger named Owen Maddie.
Oh, yeah.
Owen Maddie? Yeah, I believe so. Madden, pardon me.
Yeah.
Oni Madden. And he was the gentleman who gave us, among other things, Primo Carnera.
Perfect.
The most puffed up, non-fighting heavyweight champion ever. But Oni's girlfriend was kind of well known because of her successful Broadway shows.
Yes.
Mae West.
Right, that lady.
Yeah. And
Go,
the
go
old
Mae
side.
West, young man. Okay,
Yes.
I just made that up on the wall.
Maybe you shouldn't. And what do you call George Raft, who was a 30s era film star, played gangsters. That's because he was a gangster. He
That's
was
right, yes.
Oni's Madden's driver for a couple of years. But when Oni Madden brewed the number one best-selling beer in New York during Prohibition, Madden's number one. And when he was asked by the reporters at the time, "Do you feel uncomfortable or nervous because your name's right there on the bottle?" And he went, "No, it's good beer." So
Hey, why
Primo,
not?
Primo Carnera was like, you have to feel bad for him.
Sure. And let's get the viewers who are watching that are maybe are fans that are new. Primo Carnera was the heavyweight champion back, I guess, in the 1920s, and was a giant of a man from Italy, probably, and is the largest man. Well, I mean, the Klitschko's come along, and he kind of looks
Yeah,
about the same size, right? But at the time, he was an absolute giant of a man, and they kind of he had done some circus work, and they propped him up like he was an actual fighter, and they kind of made him believe that he was a
it's
fighter.
oh yeah, it's terrible. He was, because of his size and because of his impoverished birth, he was lonely. He was alone trying to make his way. Worked for the circus. Occasionally, would wrestle because he would do the strongman and wrestle. Got spotted in Paris and got directed towards a fight manager who saw the potential because of the size of him,
Right.
and convinced him that he had a killer punch and that he had a cast iron body and just a granite chin. In fact, Primo Carnera at his height could have hit me full blast, and I'm 5'7", and I doubt I would have gone back a step. He couldn't. He couldn't punch his way literally out of a paper bag. However, he did have a body of cast iron.
Right.
Unfortunately, it came with a chin of porcelain,
Yeah.
and a welterweight could hit him and drive him across the ring. So he had more fights with tomato cans, with diving artists of the highest caliber. I mean, like I say, so many of them came out and started looking around. Where am I going to land? And built up his record. And then Jack Sharkey first, and then Max Baer.
Yeah, the Max Baer one was pretty brutal, wasn't it?
It was vicious. And Primo was lucky.
Right.
Because he was not facing Max Baer as Max Baer fought early in his career, because Max Baer killed him.
Right. Yeah.
And despite the nonsense in that film, Cinderella Man, he didn't gloat. In fact, he sat at outside the guy's hospital room and cried when he passed. So
Right.
Maxie Bear is a distant champion of the past. His son would grow up to be Jethro
Right.
on the
Yes.
Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah. Max Baer Jr.
Yeah, and Maxie Bear was the clown prince of boxing.
Right. Yeah.
He'd be there, in the corner pulling on the ropes, about to have a fight,
Yeah.
and he'd spot some good-looking woman in the front row seats and say, "I'll blow you a kiss in the fourth, and then I'll knock this bum out." And he would play around for 3 rounds, and then come the fourth, and he would literally drop his guard, turn, blow a kiss, and then come around.
That's
He was
lovely. That's a lovely
well,
sentiment.
he was perfectly built to be a fighter. You know what I mean? The
Oh
whole
no, he
thing.
had the dimensions perfection, right? And he
It-
actually was a very very good skilled everything. Every dimension he had, including his size, was nearly perfect for the time, right? But
oh,
like you said, his nickname was perfect because in the times when he really needed to uh, grip the toes on the canvas and earn his corn, he did the opposite. And he'll always be remembered for losing his tie, winning against Carnera and then losing it to Jimmy Braddock, almost fooling around in so many of the rounds to give it away to the Cinderella Man. So that part of the story is really cool for Jimmy Braddock. But yeah, I mean, Maxie Bear, he's one of the many characters, in our incredible sport because it's, and as far as I'm concerned, I've said this to other people, it's got the most incredible, rich history with stories that are, some of them are head scratching. Most of the ones that you tell in the combination are hard to believe. That's why it's important to tell them, but they're exciting, right? It's like, what? They did what?
yeah.
But it does make it interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. There's all sorts of. I remember my father telling me about the fighter Willie Pep.
Hmm.
And people today talk about Floyd Mayweather's brilliant defensive skills. Willie Pep was fighting an eight rounder. And in the fourth round of that fight, he did not throw a single punch
Right, yeah.
and won the round on all three judges' scorecards because the other guy threw and never touched him.
Yeah. It's okay, so the good thing about Willie Pep, well, there's dozens of things to say positive as a fighter. The nice thing about him for people that don't know a lot about him today is there is a movie that's out about his life, which is I don't know when it gets to theaters, but it is. So that's, I mean, he Willie Pep, like, right, good comparison with Floyd because there's no comparison. There's no comparison. Floyd is said to be the best defensive fighter of all time. That's what they say today. Some people do. Um,
Yep.
he
And
was
I
the
understand why.
I do too, but I would put him in the top six maybe. There's others that are way better. Willie Pep being number one because of
Oh,
what
yeah.
he did. Right? It's not just because he was incredibly elusive. There's fighters out there that do that, but he was
He could
featherweight
hammer your,
champ
yeah, no, he could
for how
hammer your
long?
butt. Yeah.
He
I mean,
controlled that. Besides
his,
his fights with Sandy
yeah,
Sadler.
exactly. The fights with Sandy Sandler, they're unbelievable that they were coherent afterwards
Right.
because of how hard and how often they hit each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So
No,
that's so
the
your dad is a big influence on your love of the sport.
yeah, and my dad saw a title fight in the 30s. He was one of 60,000 or whatever it was at a soccer stadium with Benny Leonard. I believe it was Benny Leonard.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And Dad passed on the love of boxing to me. And my father was a man of firmly held opinions. He was a fierce defender of his opinions. And one of the lessons Dad taught me was in the early 60s, there was this mouthy, the Louisville Lip, Cassius Clay. And my father hated him. My dad was very much from that school that says fighters are best seen and not heard.
Right.
And Cassius Clay in those days just wouldn't shut up. My old man hated him. And I mean, loved him. He'd watch all his fights, though, just to see him get his ass kicked. He was looking for that, shut that big mouth up. And then the U.S. government, in its infinite wisdom, drafts Ali. He refuses, and he's banned from boxing. My father was so outraged by that injustice, he became the hugest Muhammad Ali fan. And also insisted that Ali was the greatest, and he'd been watching him from before Joe Louis.
That's cool.
Who, of course, took the title off of James J. Braddock.
Oh, that's right. Yes, of course he did. And then retired kind of, as an undefeated champion. And the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, which will be a discussion of other other days. But this is a sport of rich history. I grew up, actually, my dad told me that, and I grew up as a kid without watching much boxing other than Ali would have been the first big name in my boxing life. But he said that Rocky Marciano was the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, bar none, because he's undefeated. So I learned that and went, okay. And I just believed it. I believed it until I read historians. And then I said, hey, Dad, you know that what you're saying is, and as my dad in his older age used to say, bullshit. I never said that to Dad, but I tried to tell him that, no, it's actually Joe Louis. And he goes, what about Ali? No, it's actually Joe Louis. And I always have an argument that Louis is just a little bit better than Ali. It's another.
I think it would have been interesting. A lot of Joe Louis's dominance was because he was the brown bomber.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's where it was. That right hand came across. That's why they've got that 25-foot or 30-foot huge cast bronze sculpture of a right fist and forearm that hangs in Detroit.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah, it's like perfect. That's Joe.
Yeah.
But Ali was not easy to hit.
No.
Okay, and
no, he was.
And old Ali proved to have one hell of a chin.
Yep.
So, but in the early career, Ali would have been elusive, and in late career, he would have been, we don't know though.
Right. I think the only fair way of especially heavyweights is to try to be as fair as you can about it and realize that both Ali, cool stat is that Ali and Joe both lost about 3 years because of wars. And it's a big what if Cassius Clay, then Ali, didn't sit in a cell. Well, he didn't sit in a cell, but
neither one.
Yeah, not in the ring for those 3 years. How many title defenses and or wins would he have added on? But same with Joe Louis. And Joe Louis, in my mind, here's just another thing. I'm going to add this just because my guru, Mel Trentholm, rest in peace, Mel Trentholm, he always told me that the only way and only fair way to do this comparison is to have the fighters fight 3 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he said, this is what he said, and I always agreed with him. Ali might win the first one because of the deception, the defense. But Lewis would win the next two. So he would win 2 out of 3. But just speculation. It's a
No,
great
it's just,
conversation.
I mean, that's why they invented beers, so that you could debate subjects like that.
I like
Joe
Manning.
Lewis,
I like
Joe
Manning
Lewis,
101 or whatever that kind was.
Joe Lewis is, along with the greatest pound for pound, Sugar Ray Robinson, were the 2 fighters during the whole Carbo era that were clean,
Mm-hmm.
untouched, didn't take money, didn't take dive. But Joe Lewis got screwed everywhere possible. Part of the contract to finally give him a shot at the title in James J. Braddock included a requirement that from that point on, 10% of every purse for a title defense had to be paid to Braddock's manager. 10% in perpetuity.
25 defenses?
Yeah. It was just, and then, okay, when he retired, he didn't get what he was promised or contracted for. And now he's retired, and the IRS comes after him for not paying taxes from 2 exhibition bouts, both of which he donated his entire purse, one to the Navy Relief, the other to the Air Force Relief Funds. Okay? And they came after them, and those were $400,000 and $600,000 for those 2 fights. So it was actually in those days, it was like 40,000 and 60,000 roughly. That was during World War II, when it cost the Americans about $5,000 to make a warplane. And he just donated 60,000 and then like 70,000. And then when he has no income whatsoever, then they come after him for his taxes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's
I wouldn't say classic example, but a terrible example of nice guys finishing last almost, right? Because he really, yeah, you're right. He really did get burned, and when you just going back just one step about the contract of 10%, you'll get your title shot if you give us the
10% forever.
And that is the greatest or worst, but greatest sports
scam
and or contract ripoff of all time. And I don't know why it had to do with lawsuits. That was never mentioned in Cinderella Man. There was never anything at the end where a postscript where it's because it is because I don't know if how much Braddock got out of that, because Joe Gould, his manager, was a scumbag who was pretty close to the friggin' in a lot of ways. He was close to he did well with James Braddock, but a lot of people didn't like him, and he also was pretty tight with the friggin' mob himself. How much did he get? But it wasn't, again, I'm just going to make and I love Ron Howard, but there must have been something in some contract, or sorry, in some lawsuit possibility, because it was never, that's a postscript that I would have all over the back end of that movie, that he got, he may have lost to Joe Lewis, but he won. I don't know. What do you think?
You know, Joe Gould, you mentioned him, right? Manager for James J. An associate member of The Combination, which was the name those gangsters were known by. Individually, Frankie Carbo was known also as Mr. Gray because he was such a backgrounder. Blinky Palermo was a loudmouth bully. And that's, you had the soft and the hard approach. But it's remarkable to note that actually James J. Braddock had pretty much given up fighting because he wasn't doing all that good and he wasn't making that much money, and it was the Depression. Times were hard.
Yeah.
He gets a new manager by the name of Joe Gould, and suddenly his fights are improving and improving. And this is the same Joe Gould, to give you an idea how mobbed up he was. He was at the prison gates when Oni Madden came out for his, after serving 6 years, I think it was, on a manslaughter. He was the one who greeted Oni and offered him a position with one of the gang bootleggers in New York. He only declined, went on his own, and made himself rich. But so Joe Gould's mob connections stretch way back. And I'm not sure how much James J. made, but he certainly made money on the back end, on the front loading of Joe Louis.
Right.
And
you have to give him credit, though. I mean, he did win the fights that weren't expected. Those, I'm trying to remember the guys that he actually beat that he was not supposed to, that were in the movie.
Max Bear.
Oops, yeah. No, I remember that one. Corn Griffin. Remember Corn Griffin? He wasn't supposed to beat Corn Griffin, and I remember the name because it was played by, I hope I get this right, Mark Simmons, the Canadian heavyweight amateur guy. So if you watch Cinderella Man, in the background you'll see Mark Simmons as one of the fighters. Is it Lauren Ross? Jeez, I'm getting that name wrong. Am I getting it? Oh crap.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Troy Amos Ross is one of the fighters as well in a comeback in Cinderella Man. Lou Eisen. I don't know if you know that name. He's also a historian and has a book out, Boxing's Most Controversial Fights. It's on Amazon, and we were just talking about it earlier today. He's He's one of the corner men. He might be Joe Gould. We were trying to figure out which one he was, what character he played. Pretty neat though, eh? Like just as a corner man in a movie about Cinderella Man. So all filmed in Toronto. That's why we know all these people. So
yes, well, and in those days I was still working at City.
Yes.
And I would cruise down, is it Adelaide? Whichever one was the westbound one way, where they had simulated the front, the marquee, and 3 facades on each side and it was Madison Square Gardens.
Oh wow! Yep.
That's because that's where they shot the exteriors for it, and it was such a trip there for 2 or 3 weeks, driving by Madison Square Gardens at 3 a.m.
There you go, eh?
Yeah.
And in the background, you're hearing the
sound even though he's
Howard Cosell.
Yeah, and even though you would be doing better with what's his name? Not Smith, but there was Jimmy Lennon.
Jimmy Lennon, yes.
You should be doing a Jimmy Lennon impersonation for that time.
Yes. But, that's right. Yes, Jimmy Lennon Sr. He was in everything.
Senior, yeah, not Junior. Senior.
Right. Yes. He was a
huge voice. Huge voice for boxing.
Yep. But, I met his son, very famous Mr. Showtime guy. There's no longer Showtime boxing, but no, he does a great job as well. Neat the way that candle was lit from one generation to the next in boxing. He must have a lot of stories. I did talk to him about the history of of his dad's work at the Boxing Hall of Fame in Kudosto, New York. That's where I met him. So, um, yeah, some nostalgia happening there. That's for sure. So let's before we go, I really want and I really appreciate all your time. Tell us about what you think about the big Canelo and Crawford fight.
Well, that's a case of heart and mind. If I'm betting with my heart, I'm betting Canelo. If I'm betting with my head, I'm betting Crawford.
Mm.
Although, you got to look back a minute or two before you find a matchup this good.
I know. Yeah.
These are two absolute walk-in Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
They get the full rose petal treatment, right? When they go for their Hall of Fame induction, there'll be people throwing rose petals in their path. These guys are incredible fighters.
Yeah.
I like them because they're also, both of them are reflective of, I really mean it. They're not happy, and pranksters and all that. They're not pumping a big your best friend kind of image.
Mm-hmm.
They are fighters. They are
Yeah.
going in to fight.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who gave boxing a heavyweight, who gave boxing the greatest possible service. Randall Tex Cobb, because he fought Larry Holmes when Larry Holmes was undisputed heavyweight champion and a brilliant champion, a champion who does not get the due he should. That left jab of his, that was a machine.
Mm-hmm.
He could throw that at you all night, and it hurt. It hurt bad. So Randall fought Larry. Larry beat the living crap out of him. And a week later, they had Randall Tex Cobb on the Johnny Carson show, on the Tonight Show. And Johnny was a great straight man. So and Tex Cobb had a hell of a sense of humor. And Johnny goes, we saw your lips moving during the fight. Were you talking to the champ? And Tex looks at him and goes, kind of hard to communicate with someone when their fist is in your mouth. And that says it all. There's no talking. I mean, there's been some good. There's a subset for another night.
Sure.
In the ring, trash talkers.
Right.
It's one thing to trash talk from your gym or during a press conference, but trash talk during the fight. Right. You're a fight,
Yeah. I guess Ali would win that one. Pound for pound, maybe.
I'm trying to think up a couple. I know that there's a couple of other good. There's I'm on the spot now, and
my old brain. Figure out who would be better than Ali. Well, I mean that's a debate because, like you said, the Louisville Lip.
It was that 7th round of the 8 rounds against Foreman, and I think it's Richard Steele was the referee. And afterwards, he said that at one point, George threw one of those great arcing hooks that took 6 weeks to arrive. And Ali took it on the shoulders and then leaned forward and hit him 3 really clean. Bang, bang, bang. And then leaned in and went, give it back. It's mine. Well, and throughout the fight, he had been pulling the, is that all you got? Come on, hit me with something. They said you had a punch, George.
Yeah. Taunting, eh? Wow.
Well, taunting it
getting in
plays
your
on
head.
your mind. You start wondering if this guy's right. Are my punches so ineffective against him?
Yeah.
They weren't. Unfortunately, Ali paid for that years later, but
Yeah.
yeah. Now, what's his name? The Cincinnati Cyclone, Aaron Pryor.
Right.
He was a bit of a trash talker
Yes.
inside the ring.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, he had a crazy attitude, didn't he?
Well, remember his
Um,
2 fights against Arguello?
yes. Yes,
And,
those were
well,
the
the first one was a complete scandal in and of itself.
yeah. Yeah,
Remember the stimulants? Hand me the
I
special
do.
one I mixed.
Yes. I truly remember that in a major heartache. That was the heart one of the heart.
Oh, yeah.
I was pretty young. That was 1983 ish.
Yep.
It
Yep.
was would have been May, and I remember the day like because I couldn't. It was in Toronto. I was in Toronto trying to find it on pay per view and stuff. It was well before the closed circuit stuff and stuff. Couldn't find it. So, and I knew Joe Tilley, who was a young reporter at that time. He was a former fighter. He's going to
Yeah.
report. He's going to report this fight, and all he said was, "No fighter has ever won uh, titles in 4 different weight classes." And I knew that meant that Arguello lost the fight because he was
Yeah.
going for his 4th title against Aaron Pryor, and I think it was in Miami. One of the fights was in Miami. I think it was the first one, and it was yeah. And for those who don't know the story that Mike was mentioning, there was stimulants apparently in a particular bottle. Some say because of
Well,
the
Panama Lewis, his
yes,
man or corner man, who was eventually banned from any involvement with boxing.
right,
He not only fed something suspicious to Aaron late in the fight, but he coated one of his fighters' wrappings with plaster of Paris and
Luis
pulled
Resto.
stuffing out of the ring. What? Sorry?
His name was Luis Resto.
Yeah, that's it. And pulled padding out, plaster of Paris, the wrappings, and then Resto went out and beat the living hell out of somebody. And afterwards, it was called out. They shook hands with him, as they do afterwards. And they went, wait a second, this is cast cement here. But
yeah, that was live on television, and I watched it live on television, and it was on the undercard. I can't remember. It was a really well known main event, but that was the undercard, and the gentleman's name was Billy Collins Jr. And he was an
that's it.
undefeated he was an
Yes,
undefeated
yes,
Irish kid from Boston, and it ruined him. There's pictures
it did.
on the internet of him afterwards, and um, Panama Lewis and Luis Resto spent time in jail. Not near enough because
Yeah.
he's been Panama Lewis has been back into boxing,
Well,
despite the ban.
he's only been allowed to work with amateurs.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, he's allowed to
Perfect.
work with amateurs. He cannot
Perfect.
work with professionals. As a matter of fact, I think there's a shoot on site order for him if he goes into a pro gym. Okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
they
dirty things throughout the sport of boxing. Like you've mentioned, there are great stories in the combination that you've done all this research for, but a lot of it is just dirty too, right? And I mean, this is a
oh
sport that we
yeah,
love, but at the same time, it's like these poor boxers who were put in positions where they were forced to do things they probably didn't want to do, and their integrity is kind of questioned in a way. But at the same time, they're put in a position where there's literally loaded guns around, and and a lot of the money goes to the wrong people, right? I mean, if you look at the history of the
late
sport,
fifties, late 50s. There was a fighter, Carmen Bastillo.
yeah,
Bastillo,
Basilio,
yeah.
Basilio,
He was adamant that he would have nothing to do As a matter of fact, now I'm going to follow up. But he was adamant he would have nothing to do with the combination. Frankie Carbo can go do something unnatural with a lizard, but he wasn't interested. He's in the 5th round, and he had been specifically asked to take a dive in the 6th round of a fight. And between the 5th and the 6th, this guy standing outside the ring shouts, "Hey, Garmin, look at this." Shows him a gun. The threat's kind of obvious. Carmen didn't dive.
Right.
He didn't take the dive. It's worth noting, though, that while Carmen never became part or associated with the IBF and Frankie Carbo, his manager was part of Frankie Carbo's International Boxing Club managers.
They almost all of them were kind of forced.
Oh yeah, no, they were forced
to get anything. And Carmen,
yeah, he couldn't do anything. Carmen was
great fighter, and little known fact, his first cousin was Billy Backus. Was it Billy Backus? Ralph Backus?
No.
Welterweight champion. Carmen Basilio, I've got footage of him walking towards me, throwing punches, and then he literally comes at me when I have a camera, and he throws about 4 or 5 punches to my body. And he was in, like, it was 2 or 3 years before he passed away. And I've got this footage, and it ends in a hug. It's really cool. It was
wonderful.
I
liked him.
Yeah, no, his brother was a good fighter too, but they're from Canastota, New York. That's where the Hall of Fame is. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's from there. So there's somebody
I got a last yarn that I like.
Sure.
Okay. And it all ties in with the combination, and it impacts, well, modern boxing in the case of like 20 years ago. And that was the fact that there was a fight manager and trainer in New York who loathed Carbo, wanted nothing to do with them. Also knew that if you were in New York and in boxing, you had to deal with Frankie Carbo. So he moved to the Catskills. And Customato then raised up Floyd Patterson as a heavyweight champion. And then, 20 years later, he was there for Mike Tyson. But Cuss went to the Catskills in the late 50s to get away from the pressure from Frankie Carbo.
Nice. Yeah, he hated those guys, eh?
Oh boy. And it's worth noting that it took the new U.S. Attorney General, new at the time, Robert Kennedy.
Heard of him.
Personally led the prosecution against Frankie Carbo and got him a 20-year sentence.
Yeah.
Now, Frankie served about 9 years and then got what was known then as a compassionate release.
Oh.
Yeah, he was sick. And they weren't kidding. He was dead within 2 months of his release.
So. Right, and Blinky, I believe. He was met by somebody at the
Blinky gets out of prison. Right, he does about 9. He gets out of prison within 6 months. He's working. He's back in boxing. He's managing. He is doing the Blinky Palermo shuffle. And Jimmy Young, who had just lost a fight with Ali,
right, yeah,
that many thought he won.
Yes.
He took over Jimmy Young. Years later, Jimmy Young would say, when he was asked what it was like having Blinky Palermo as his manager, he said, "See these eyes? They're borrowed because Blinky stole my eyes." Blinky stole everything.
Oh, yeah.
he would
Heart,
get
soul.
Jimmy would get $1,000 out of a $90,000 purse. You know,
Yeah.
but Blinky unfortunately polluted the earth for too long.
Yes, he did. And the stories of what he did, the nasty stuff that he did, um, like I said before, I mean, we smirk at it, but at the same time, it's terrible. But it makes for amazing, true life, true history, true stories for a great sport. And it's been a pleasure talking to you about this book. And congratulations! It's
Thank you.
been a long time coming. It reads beautifully, and it's a great gift for any Christmas person. So anybody who has any boxing fan or any fan of real true crime, this is the book for you. It's called The Combination by Michael J. Woods. Make sure you check it out on Amazon, and I swear you're going to get a really good publishing deal from this, Mike. This is really strong work, and
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
we will talk to you after the Crawford Canelo fight. It's on Netflix, which gets a lot of eyeballs. So I think it's
Including
going to
mine.
be,
Mine
yeah.
will be, I get Netflix all out, all through my house. You can believe I'll have a fresh coffee and be ready to watch because, yeah, it's going to
Just
be a war.
make sure that, just so you know, no screaming beyond a certain level. It's called 911. We're monitoring you. Um, you
Yeah.
can only be so truculent around me, my friend.
Well, there was, there is no one I'd rather be truculent with. We have a long, long history. I keep thinking of that morning when you told me you were leaving city and the reason why, and my showing my predictive powers, my ability to foresee the future, because you told me the idea and the reason you were leaving and the idea behind it. And I can remember I looked at you and I went, Scotty, I love you like a brother. And that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. That stupid thing ran 8 friggin' seasons. Once again,
Well, yes. I
you
mean,
were part and parcel of my 2.5 year streak where I failed to pick a single winner
oh, wow.
in major title fights.
Right.
I couldn't pick the winner if it had a bit,
Right, but you know what? For the viewers that are watching and for the friendship I had for many years, I really truly am glad you don't streak for 2 straight years because put some clothes on. There's kids watching.
Talk to you next time.
Okay, have a great day and make sure you enjoy the fight and it's been great chatting. Talk soon. All right, there is the legend from City TV. He's done so much great work as a TV producer for Global, and now he has this amazing book called The Combination. And I know he's got some really wise things to say about Canelo and Crawford, so I hope everybody enjoys that and enjoys the treasure hunt for Harry Greb's lost fight films. They're in your grandparents' attic. They could be in your grandma's basement. Check them out because they're worth tens of millions of dollars. That's a lot, and it's hard to say. But what isn't hard to say is the greatest middleweight champion of all time. And if we find the films, it'll prove he's the best of all time. Even better than Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, right. No, seriously. Mayweather was 50-0. That's a pretty darn good career. Harry Greb was 45-0 in 1919 alone. Goodbye. Have a great day. Make sure you keep your chin down